right, there we go. So, welcome, Tommy and Mike, to the podcast.
Hey Adam, what's
Awesome.
up, buddy?
So, I must say, congratulations with the new album.
Thank
Polarity.
you. And thank you very much.
No, it's a great album. I mean, listen to it all, during the week, and fantastic songs.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. We put a lot into it, hoping that people would love it as much as we enjoyed making it.
Yeah, definitely. So, the basic concept about this album, are there a lot of the songs written over the pandemic and about the pandemic as well?
Yeah, and I think Tommy, if you want to chime in on this as well, you certainly can. To kind of give a idea of our thoughts. Obviously, it wasn't just about pandemic necessarily. It was just about the emotions and what people go through in the process.
Yeah.
Right. And it was it took us 2 years. Was this 2 years in the making, Mike? Something like that. And that's why like the album is so like stylistically and sonically is so different. Each song brings something different because we didn't want to just go in there, make an album and everything be like the same shit. We wanted to like change it up and we just what we felt, we wanted to present whatever we felt at that time. I think we did a pretty good job of doing that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, going over the song like Brainwashed, which I think a lot of people really connect to that one.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes. That was very timely.
Yep.
And boy, took on a big meaning, that's for sure. And I think that a lot of people can listen to not just Brainwashed, but the entire album and relate to it on one level or another, where they can apply it to something that's happening in their life, and kind of generate their own feeling and connection with what's happening. Brainwash was just that one of those songs for us when we wrote it, because man, after a while, it just did feel like, there's so much information coming from so many different sources. Not just, and it's the first time in our lifetimes that it isn't just in our neighborhood or it just isn't in our country. It's a worldwide thing.
For sure.
And all this information coming in at once. And it's like, man, talk about brainwashed, from one side to the other. It is what you make of it. And however you connect to that, it'll make sense. Right.
100%. Yeah. I mean, like yesterday, for example, here in the news, they just announced, the fourth dose, like everyone's got to get this fourth dose. And it's like, really feel like brainwashed.
Right. Or when and like I said, and there's always two sides usually, or two or three sides on every different topic. And people get to the point where they get so much information, they start wondering I don't know, what am I doing? And who am I following? Who am I listening to? And you get after so many, not just months, but years now of this barrage of information and programming and this and that, it's, sometimes you just got to throw up your arms and go, oh my gosh, enough's enough.
Yeah. So where are you guys up to there at the moment over in the States as far as the doses? Like we're up to number 4 now. So
as far as I don't know, Tommy, where are we at now? Are they trying to do? I don't even know anymore. I don't even pay attention.
I'm a hermit, so I don't even know what's happening.
I don't know. It's latest I heard they're figuring it out for infants and seniors and something in between. But it's tough to tell because every time you turn on the news, or it's always something different. So once again, how are you going to know what's really the situation? So you gotta just educate yourself as best as possible and kind of navigate through it.
Yep, 100%. That's right. Now going over to the other one where you got the lyric video for the cartoon Falling, another great song. So you can tell us a bit about that song.
Tommy, over to you, buddy.
That one is more like for me personally, that's like more my style, that percussive, almost genty style riffing. Not as melodic as some of the other tracks. I mean, it's got moments, but that one to me, that one was a lot of fun to make. Like just going to that different level. I would say it's definitely one of the more don't want to say heavier, but aggressive farewell tunes.
Yeah.
I would think, but no, that one was a lot of fun, and I love the effect in the beginning because so I'm a huge Godzilla mark, as you could tell by the shirt, the hat, poster. So I tried to attempt to recreate like his roar because they made it with a bass guitar. So I kind of did the best I could to kind of recreate that in the beginning, and that was a lot of fun. On the production side of things.
Yeah, lyrically, it's once again, it's another song I think that everyone can relate to on a personal level, in whatever area that you may be feeling. I think that I think to some degree, a lot of times people do feel that they're in this perpetual downward, spiral, to some degree because of all the things that are happening around them. And but it doesn't have to be that way, but I think there's moments in our lives we all feel like that, but once again, and I think that what I hope people get out of it is that they know that whatever they're doing, whatever they're happening, whatever they're going through, it's okay. They're not alone. And whether they feel that there's no end in sight, just got to have that faith and belief that, you're right around the corner. I'm a big believer of, man, life is a series of problems and challenges and shit you got to work your way through. And if you're not currently dealing with a challenge or a problem right now, you probably just got out of one. And if you didn't just get out of one, and you're not in one right this moment, there's one waiting right outside that's going to hit you when you walk out the door. But so that's part of life. Just know that you're not alone, and we all go through the process. So it's not something that you have to, that's not the end game. You know what I mean?
So when you guys wrote this album, for example, was that like a collaboration thing together, or was it separately? So the majority of all of our stuff is a collaboration. We've got a bunch of talented guys in this band. So we like to try to bring everybody in as much as possible to bounce ideas off of, or we create some ideas and then bounce them off, and then we do, it's not necessarily that we all get in a room together. It's hard for us to do that, not just because of COVID, but it was hard because we all live in different states. Okay. So we don't live in the same town. So for the sake of efficiency and the sake of trying to keep things on track, Tommy and I do the majority of the brainstorming, and then we bounce ideas and thoughts and we make adjustments as need be, as we're making final approaches to the song and go in kind of in that format. Yeah, that's really cool. I mean, I guess a lot of people I spoke to over the last year or so, a lot of the albums have been written, remotely, sending files back and forth and everything. So it seems like the way it works. Yeah, and it wasn't any big deal for us. We've been doing it that way for the last 10 years. Yeah. So going through this process was easy for us, just because we're used to doing it. But you're right. For a lot of bands, it was probably a culture shock for them not to be able to do it the way they had been doing it. So we're fortunate in that fact. Yeah, excellent. So do you play guitar as well, Mike? I don't. I dabble, but I can't do. I'm one of those guys that I can't do too many things. I can't do too many things at one time very well. So I stick to what I feel that I'm okay at, and I just try to stay in my lane. Okay, fair enough. Now, Tommy, so when you write your riffs, do you have like a vocal melody in mind, or just more the riffs?
Absolutely not. I don't even usually have a riff idea in mind. I usually walk in the studio and go, see what happens. No, I mean, I wish I had a cooler story to tell you. Like, I went through this process. No, I mean, especially the last batch of songs that we did, I picked up Mike from the airport and I literally looked at him like, hey man, so I have nothing. I don't have a clue what we're doing. And for me though, that kind of works out better because it's like, all right, well, cool, we're gonna be there together and we're gonna start fresh and let's see what happens. I mean, because I believe if you have set ideas, then you're like kind of locked in to those ideas, or you're dedicated to those ideas, and then it's a lot harder to change. I mean, I produce bands for a living, and a lot of the bands I work with, they have a hard time or they struggle with the idea of change because it's like, well, this is the way I've been doing it for so long. I'm like, yeah, but it's not working. So the fact that we kind of walked in the majority of this record blind, it actually worked to our benefit.
Yeah.
Which is actually how I approach a lot of my writing. Is I don't really walk in there with like, hey, I have this cool idea, because I mean, I can't remember what I did 5 minutes ago. So do you expect me to walk in there with an idea and remember it? No, it's usually just, hey, this sounds really cool. Let's piece it together and see what happens, or see if we can make magic out of it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, some of your riffs and then the melodies that you come up with, Mike, over the top, they blend really well together. But it's like, you know, it's one of these type things. It's
Yeah, well,
it's great.
and the process was fun. I mean, that's one thing that, you know, Tommy and I talked about. It's like, man, that was really fun. We really had a good time in the process itself, because there was a lot of spontaneity. And around the whole theme around this album was, let's just do whatever. Let's do whatever we feel like doing, as opposed to, and I know Tommy deals with this every day because he's, you know, produces bands, but even writing albums prior to there's always been this kind of goal in mind.
Formula.
Okay, this album has to go down this different direction, or this album is specifically written, and you have to kind of keep things in this little box, you know. Because if you go outside of this box and you do this, well, it's not going to fit the format that these people are looking for, or that type of thing. And so this album was, and when Tommy was like, "You sure you want to do that?" I'm like, "Yes, absolutely." I mean, the gloves came off. It was, let's do this, because I don't know. It was almost like, I don't know, do you like it? Tommy's like, "Well, yeah, it's badass." I'm like, "Well, good, then let's do that."
Let's do it.
Because, you know, because at the end of the day, you know, who are we doing this for? And I believe that if we truly are doing this because we really love it, and we're putting out music because we think it's fun, but we think it's badass, I think other people will relate and understand that as well. If we are contracted to continue to write a particular way for a particular outcome, I think that you miss the whole point, you know, of what we're doing.
Yeah, that's great. I guess it's really good for you guys too to have that flexibility just to write whatever comes out.
You know, whatever. So, hey, if people love it, awesome. You know, if people hate it, awesome. I mean, it's okay, right? Because, you know, once we don't have big egos, and we're just want to make some fun stuff, and, you know, and have a good time doing it, and hopefully people will join in that.
Yeah, 100%. Now, just going over to one of the other songs, Crash and Burn. That's probably one of my favorites, I'd say.
Okay.
Just something a bit different.
Well, that was, I mean, Tommy came up with that riff, and I was like, dude, that riff is sick.
Yeah.
It's like, we've got to do something with that. There was definitely some dynamics in that one. And like I said, we actually brought in our old producer as well on that song, which was Damon Starkey that produced our last album, Voices. Great dynamic guy, and works really, really well with Tommy and I and the rest of the guys. So, and, you know, it was good because it brings in another dynamic, you know, that we can leverage and utilize. And that was just a fun song, you know, to play. And then once again, lyrically, it just goes down to one of the biggest issues that we're dealing right now. Are we staring, you know, if we were to look ahead into the future, I mean, where are we at? I mean, are we going to be okay? And this is the questions for a lot of people. Or are we just going to screw this shit up, and it's just a big crash and burn fireball ahead of us? And because I think it all starts with, you know, and without sounding cliche or cheesy, it's all, you know, even in the song, it's all about love, not hate. And if we're focusing on hate, well, that can promise you, this world's going to hell in handbasket, you know? And, you know, it's really kind of up to us to make that decision, and as a collective. So hopefully people get the point on where we're coming with that song.
Yeah, for sure. But no, I mean, the whole album is just fantastic. And then you got the cover at the end. So how did that come about? The Surprise You're Dead, Face No More.
Well, it was interesting because, and like I said, like Tommy mentioned earlier, we had this like 2-year span where we were, sometimes we were really, really eager. Yeah, I mean, we were exploring, we're doing different things, and we were, experimenting on different stuff. So, in some of the lull, I was like, well, because we haven't done a cover that we actually put out since Diamonds, and that was 2013. And so, that was a long time and so, well, if we do it, and that was a different story altogether. So then I started thinking back and said, well, I mean, trying to find a cover to cover is always hard to do. But it usually starts with, man, wouldn't it be great to pay homage to Faith No More? I mean, they're one of our favorite bands. And I mean, Surprise You're Dead's one of my favorite songs. It's got one of the most brutal grooves, it just hits you right between the face or between the eyes. So it's like, what if we were to do our spin on this, which was a little scary, because putting it on an album, because we didn't want to disappoint anybody either. It's intimidating, and we hope that people will look at it and go, you know what, you guys did a great job on that song. And I hope that that's what the case is, because it would kill me to think that the Faith No More fans out there totally reject it, because I'm a huge Faith No More fan.
Yeah. But yeah, talking about Faith No More, though, I had an interview with Scott Ian from Anthrax last month, and we were talking about the cover he did with Mike Patton of Van Halen. I don't know if you guys seen that.
Yes.
Yeah, amazing cover, really cool.
Oh, super cool. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, it's and when you start thinking back to all of the, your music heroes and people that you listen to growing up and who you emulate or, stylize or whatever you call it, it does. And it goes back to those guys. And it's funny you mentioned Scott Ian. I mean, it was like Anthrax was one of my favorite bands growing up. I mean, it's like, when you start listening to certain things, then when we got together, throughout that span of time that we were writing this album, I remember telling Tommy, I was like, man, Tommy, I want to do something thrashy. And he was like, what are you talking about? what do you mean? I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, I mean, we got to do this, So, and he did an amazing job of, getting back into the roots of the Metallica, Anthrax, Megadeth, and Pantera, and trying to pull all this together so we could kind of get back to those roots and put something on this album. So I'm so glad that we did.
Actually, there was one song, I can't remember what it was now, but it did remind me a little bit of Metallica, just the sound of the song. I didn't write it down.
Yes.
But it was really cool.
For me, it was a lot of fun because, growing up when I was like 12, 15, getting into guitar, I mean, that's the band I worshipped was Metallica. So to be able to write and record this kind of stuff, I mean, I felt like I've always made a joke that nostalgia was going to be the death of me. Well, quite frankly, I actually saved my life on this record. Like, to be able to get in touch with like the inner kid again was awesome.
Yeah.
Like, to play this style again, I felt it was definitely some of the most fun I've had, like making a record and just playing again. Like I told Mike when we started doing this, I was like, dude, it feels good to finally, play some fucking guitar again. Not discrediting anything else I've done, but a lot of it wasn't guitar driven, where some of the rest of your songs are very guitar driven. And it pushed me as a player and as a writer. I mean, my arm still hurts to this day recording some of those riffs.
Yeah, it's funny because I've been, so I get sponsored by an app called Musician, and Metallica have just done a course for the app as well.
Nice.
And James just talks about how he's just always downstrokes.
That's how I am too. I'm always,
really?
especially when it comes to rhythms, and it does freak people out. That I downpick everything, even the fast shit, because I want that attack. And remember, I like I said earlier, I grew up wanting to play like Metallica, be like Metallica. So to play the rhythms right, I knew you had to downpick everything. And I know sometimes our other guitar player will be like, dude, why did you make it like that? Or why the fuck did you do it like that? I'm like, because it. I know as far as like technique goes, it's probably wrong, but it just sounds heavy and it sounds mean. I love it, and to me, at the end of the day, as a producer and as a guitar player, I don't give a shit if it's technically right. If it sounds sick and it's badass and it makes the song badass, dude, that's all that matters. Throw that technicality crap out the window, because the average fan's not going to give a crap,
Well, that's what James talks about. He say, how you could do it up and down, and he actually describes, explains the difference, and you hear the difference how it sounds, and it just doesn't sound the same.
No, it doesn't. And like, I mean, there are some moments like we're recording the rhythms where I'm like, oh man, maybe I should alternate pick, but I was like, nah, fuck it, it's got to be heavy. It's got to be that sound. And you alternate picking. I don't care how good you are, it's not the same, man. It's not.
Yeah, that's great. So what? I know you talked about Metallica, but what some of your guys' other influences, vocally and guitar wise?
For me, I like guys like Buckethead, of course. But as far as songwriters go, and this is the funny one, I really look up to Johnny Cash. As far as composition goes, especially with this record, now stepping up on the production side and the synth game, I actually listen to a lot of like 80s new wave, like The Fix, NXS, Bryan Adams, like stuff like that. Yep. Which is ironic because Stranger Things, the whole Kate Bush thing making a huge comeback. I feel like those like 80s type sounding synths go really, really well with like the modern metal. Like if you listen to like If Tomorrow Never Comes, there's like that constant like pulse synth in the background that's very influenced by like that new wave sound. So I love a lot of that stuff, Yeah,
you wouldn't pick that, but it's great to hear.
Thank you.
Well, that's the beauty, is like taking things that you wouldn't anticipate and kind of putting those things together, and it makes something totally new, So, and I think when it comes to influences on this particular album, it is all over the spectrum. I think, and actually, when we were writing, a lot of it was some of the things that we were thinking about. I mean, we were intentional on some of it, where it was like, listen, when people listen to this particular song, I want them to feel that they're 20 years back or 30 years back, or listening to something that was written back in late 80s or the 90s, and it had that feel to it. I mean, obviously there's a little more modern production here, but there is definitely that feeling and some of the sounds that you would hear that would kind of bring you back to that, whether that's, and you can clearly tell some of the influences on some of these songs, from Pantera, from Megadeth to Anthrax to obviously Faith No More. I mean, there's a whole slew of them in there, but then also branch into some of the newer stuff that's out there, like Gojira, Mastodon, just in some of the newer, more modern active rock, even. That kind of is infused in some of these songs. It is it's a kind of a testament to round out a little bit. Oh, speaking of testament, another one, another one that was an influencer on this album. So, I mean, you look at all this stuff and you think about, and like Maiden, I mean, it's like, there's certain things we could do that maybe we couldn't do on an older album because it wasn't acceptable in the eyes of certain people or the industry or whatnot. But we've got some amazing, talented musicians, and with Bill Staley and Tommy on guitars, being able to trade off licks and trade off solos and be able to do harmonies together and do things that were normal, in a lot of the older music, and Testament and Maiden and Priest and all this other stuff that we just couldn't do.
Yeah.
And we're able to pull that to life on this album.
Yeah, some of the guitar work on this album is just crazy. It's really, really good. Love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. One last question. So, any plans of coming down to Australia?
Oh, Tommy, what do you want to do?
I want to. Like, we gotta, it's gotta.
I guess we leave that up to you. Huh?
Yeah. You can make it happen. Get us out there.
For sure.
We want to. There's no doubt about it. There's hands down. We want to get out there and share this music with everybody we possibly can. And We have not been to Australia before, although we have a lot of friends there. Touring with Like a Storm and touring with Fozzy and touring with people that have definitely toured quite a bit through there. We would definitely like to do that. So I say to all the listeners out there, people watching the podcast and whatnot, man, connect with us, speak to everybody, talk to radio, talk to whoever you want to talk to, and let people know you want us to come. We would, the more demand there is on your end, the easier it'll be for us to make the trip for sure. Sounds
great. I'm sure John will make it happen at Nuclear Blast.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. I really appreciate your time today. And it's like I said, it's a fantastic album, and I'm sure everyone's going to love it.
I certainly hope so, man. We put everything, we had a lot of fun doing it. So we hope you guys love it as much as we love creating it for sure. And Adam, obviously we appreciate your time, man.
No problem. That was great having both here.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.
Appreciate you, brother. We'll talk to you soon. All right.
For sure. See you later. Bye-bye.